Hello, this is Melanie Goralnik, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the June 2nd issue of the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The first story is Toronto gas prices to jump 8 cents on Wednesday by Ling Hui. If your vehicle's gas tank is running low, today is the time to top up, as a leading industry analyst predicts gas prices will shoot back up on Wednesday. Following a week of lower gas prices, Canadians for Affordable Energy President Dan McTeague told CP24 he anticipates the average price at the pumps will rise to 177.9 cents per liter on Wednesday, and may increase another 2 or 3 cents per liter on Thursday. As of Tuesday afternoon, the average price of regular gas in Toronto was 169.9 per liter, according to Canadians for Affordable Energy's website. McTeague blamed the continuing price volatility on the war in the Middle East, in which, despite U.S. President Donald Trump's insistence that indirect talks with Iran were continuing at a, quote, rapid pace, Tehran has said it was suspending negotiations with the U.S. The ongoing war has stalled shipping traffic along the Strait of Hormuz, which includes oil exports from the Persian Gulf states. Difficult times ahead. Every time it's a talk of a deal, prices drop. We've seen it sort of happen the past 93 days since the Iran war began, McTeague told CP24. And then, like every other talk of the deal, rumor of a deal, it collapses. And when it collapses, the price has to go back up. That's simply because the world is draining rapidly reserve supplies of oil, he said. McTeague said he expects the price of gas to go up more rapidly than I think most are comfortable with, and predicts we're in for some really difficult times ahead. That story was Toronto gas prices to jump 8 cents on Wednesday by Ling Hui. The next story is, was Toronto cyclist takedown good policing or police going too far? By Joe Wormington. When police officers tell you to pull over and you don't, has it ever worked out well? Did the cyclist get what he deserved? Or did Toronto police go too far in this dramatic two-wheel takedown? There are different points of view, but one thing everybody understands is whether it's on 18 wheels, 4 wheels, 2 wheels, or 2 feet, police are going to use their authority if you try to flee from them, no matter what mode of transportation you are using. Trying to flee from police is what is being alleged here. How many cops does it take to arrest a cyclist allegedly running a stop sign and also from them? A viral video on social media captured in the Queens Quay and Bathurst Street area at 6:27 p.m. on Sunday, May 31, shows 4. Appropriate? Too many? There is no middle ground. People are entrenched in their views. Quote, "We have video of what appears to be multiple Toronto police officers tackling, pinning down, and arresting a cyclist during a TPS stop sign trap on the Martin Goodman Trail this weekend," said the biking lawyer David Shelnut, who so far is not representing the accused. Shelnut said the cyclist asked, "What did I do wrong?" An officer, he said, replied, "You didn't stop." From there, the video shows 3 officers on top of the rider with a 4th officer assisting them. You can hear shrieks of discomfort. Officers will support each other when they are having difficulty gaining control of a person they are arresting. Shelnut, however, tells the Toronto Sun that if all of this was for a stop sign violation, this is a grossly excessive use of force for a traffic infraction in an area that has poorly placed a stop sign and should be a yield. And we call upon Mayor Olivia Chow and local councillor Asma Malik to look into this. What Toronto police said. In a next post, TPS said, quote, "Police were conducting cyclist stop sign enforcement in the area of Queens Quay West and Little Norway Crescent. The division had numerous community complaints regarding cyclists failing to obey the posted stop sign at the intersection. Officers observed a male cyclist traveling eastbound on Queens Quay West failed to stop for the clearly marked stop sign." TPS added that officers directed the cyclist to stop. The cyclist proceeded through the intersection at a high rate of speed and shouted a profanity at officers as he passed. A second officer again directed the cyclist to stop. However, the cyclist refused and attempted to flee from police. The cyclist was subsequently arrested and issued 3 provincial offense notices. Constable Laura Brabant tells the Toronto Sun that the cyclist received citations under the Highway Traffic Act for failure to stop, failure to identify, and disobey stop sign. But we only name the accused if the charge is criminal, not provincial. It's difficult for the officers to make an arrest of someone on a moving bike. And while there has been no evidence shown so far that this particular cyclist broke any rules, certainly there are many people on bikes who routinely violate the law, plow through stop signs and stoplights, and express anger through profanity toward pedestrians and motorists. This is why police were asked by the community to conduct this enforcement. Cyclists can be a menace and are used to having the law apply to them. I think they meant not used, but anyway. This time it was. When police ask you to pull over in a car, a truck, or on a bike or a motorcycle, and you don't do it, there may be action taken. Officers have a job to do, and it's not easy. Was the arrest too forceful? So, police doing enforcement is a legitimate pursuit. And maybe it's time for a cyclist to face the weight of the law, which is tasked to make sure pedestrians and others are safe. That said, Shellnet argues, quote, "Using force in this manner to hit a cyclist off their bike for a traffic infraction is incredibly dangerous and a possible example of excessive force." He added, "In Ontario, an officer cannot hit you off your bike unless your actions pose an immediate, severe threat to public safety, justifying the use of physical force. This does not appear to be the case here." It's a great debate. This accused was not charged criminally with resisting arrest. Perhaps the good that could come out of this is the much-needed conversation about making all cyclists who use the roadways and bike lanes be licensed. There also needs to be discussion of banning unlicensed electric or motorist bikes and scooters from sidewalks, designated bike routes, and roads. While Shellnet, who is just doing his job as a lawyer and, like the officers, doesn't deserve scorn for doing it, said, quote, "Admittedly, we can't see the initial infraction, but do receive confirmation the arrest was due to this person not stopping. Nothing is said about the officer or public safety. There does not appear to have been anyone hit by this cyclist." Clayton Campbell, president of the Toronto Police Association, defended his officer's actions. Quote, "With the information we have, we believe our members were lawfully entitled to use the amount of force necessary to bring the situation under control," Campbell said, noting cyclists need to obey the law, which includes obeying all traffic signs and stopping when ordered to do so by police. In this case, that did not happen. He added, "Our advice to all road users is simple. When an officer tells you to stop, stop." There are many loose ends. We just don't know the full story. All perspectives deserve a fair hearing. It would also be helpful to find other camera angles. This could, perhaps, fill in the blanks of what we don't see in the first video. Without that, it's hard to make a decision if this was over-the-top policing or excellent policing. On cycling issues, it seems there will be no convincing either side that there is any nuance. But one thing that won't change is that when the cops ask you to stop, it is never a good idea to not comply. So there is a screenshot from a video that the Toronto police furnished. So you can see the cyclist on the ground. He's laying in the grass next to the curb. And fortunately, this grass looks really, really thick. So hopefully it, you know, made the fall not so bad. And his bike is next to him on the ground. And there are two police officers that are wearing shorts running up to him. Photo courtesy of Toronto Police. That story was Toronto cyclist takedown good policing or police going too far? By Joe Warmington. The next story is Indian national trucker in cross-border dope bust faces music by Brad Hunter. To trucker Ranjit Singh, late of India, it was all just a terrible, terrible mistake. A setup. The 32-year-old, one of a slew of South Asian truckers busted for dope smuggling at the Canada-US border, claims he had no knowledge of what was in the trailer. What was the cargo? Well, according to Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, about $2 million in cocaine. Enough to blow out the septums of 1,000 drug users. In 2024 through 25, massive drug busts at the Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia and the Ambassador Bridge linking Detroit and Windsor were unfolding daily. Suspected to be behind much of it was Canadian Olympian turned alleged drug kingpin Ryan Wedding. Allegedly utilizing South Asian criminals as proxies, who then recruited drivers, the dope was moved from Southern California into Canada. And the vast majority of the drivers? Why, they were of South Asian ancestry, with some, like Ranjit Singh, in Canada on a work permit. Now, Singh, the poor patsy, is charged with importing cocaine into Canada, as well as possession of cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. He went on trial in Sarnia on Monday. None of the charges have been proven in court. Rolled into a CBSA trap. What Singh could not have known was that Homeland Security and the CBSA knew he was rolling straight into their spider's web. In early 2024, in April, Singh made a delivery in the U.S. and then picked up pallets from 3 different locations before returning to Canada. CBSA agents had placed what's known as a National Targeting Center notice on Singh's truck and trailer. The feds call it a risk-based targeting methodology to identify incoming high-risk shipments for examination. For Singh, it all went down in the early morning hours of April 26, 2024. He got the bad news CBSA officers were thoughtfully providing him with a secondary inspection. Most of his payload were Harry's razors. But wait, what about those 2 Home Depot boxes packed differently from the rest of the load? Inside the boxes was allegedly 40 kilograms in cocaine. Stop at Illinois Home Depot. Inside Singh's truck, agents found a flattened unused Home Depot packing box under the mattress along with the duffel bag and packing tape. RCMP investigator Constable Ty Lambs testified that Singh had stopped at an Illinois Home Depot for about 15 minutes. The Canadian-US border lay 4 hours away. Lamb said he retraced Singh's steps in the U.S. with an assist from Homeland Security. Singh's lawyer, Terry Brandon, allowed that the truck her client was driving was carrying cocaine. She said he was unaware. That could be true. Nor is it known whether the accused was working with the wedding party. However, What also is true is how deeply wedding's nefarious tentacles are embedded in the trucking industry. In 2024 alone, CBSA seized about $75 million in cocaine at southern Ontario border crossings. The amount jumped again in 2025. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Sea-Doo was logistics king. Wedding, who was arrested by the U.S. in January, allegedly ran a $1 billion drug empire with close ties to the Mexican cartels. Drivers were reportedly paid around $220,000 per shipment. In addition to Wedding, sitting at the apex of the scheme was Brampton trucking executive Gurhamrit Sea-Doo, 62. Last March, he copped in a Los Angeles courtroom to orchestrating the logistics of the cross-border smuggling. Nicknamed the King, Sea-Doo admitted his role in the enterprise. Smaller fish have already been caged, and many of those charged have yet to go to trial. Former trucker Ranjit Singh's day in the sun is expected to last 3 weeks. He will not be the last. There is a booking picture of Ryan Wedding. It doesn't say when, but he's got short, really buzzed brown hair, brown eyes, and like a 5 o'clock shadow. And he's just wearing a plain green t-shirt. Photo courtesy of U.S. Embassy, Mexico City. That story was Indian National Trucker in Cross-Border Dope Bust Faces Music by Brad Hunter. The next story is Ambassador Peter Hoekstra fans the flames of the 51st state debate by Brian Lilly. Ambassador Peter Hoekstra is kicking a hornet's nest by posting about Canada becoming the 51st state. Donald Trump's point man in Canada, a man who has had a really rough ride since he got here, is in Quebec City for meetings that by accounts were going well, and then Hoekstra did something stupid on social media. He took what Donald Trump had said on his Truth Social account and shared it on his own account. Quote, 51st state! Exclamation mark. Trump posted to Truth Social just before 9:30 Monday evening. The post included a link to a Bloomberg article on how Canada's economy has dipped into a recession for the first time since 2020. On Tuesday morning, just after 8 a.m., Hoekstra posted a screenshot of Trump's post combined with a screenshot of the Bloomberg article. He offered no further comment beyond sharing the photos, but any reasonable person could look at that and rightly think that the Ambassador Hoekstra is endorsing Canada becoming the 51st state of the USA. If that's his view, then I would agree with calls to kick him out of the country. We don't need diplomats in this country who actively try to undermine Canadian sovereignty. What Hoekstra has said on the issue. Hoekstra was asked during his confirmation hearing whether Canada was a sovereign state. Canada is a sovereign state, yes, Hoekstra said before going on to say he didn't know about the relationship between Trump and former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. In media interviews, he has put the 51st state issue in the rearview mirror. Quote, from my standpoint, from the president's standpoint, 51st state's not coming back. It's done, Hoekstra told the National Post last year. In an interview with me last June, Hoekstra tried to downplay the 51st state issue, but said if the president brought it up, he wouldn't tell him that he couldn't. While the ambassador has tried to claim the offer was a term of endearment for Trump, a show of how much Trump loves Canada, he has clearly heard how Canadians feel. He has been told in no uncertain terms that Canadians view the calls for Canada to become the 51st state as offensive and aggressive. which is why his decision to repost Trump's comment and to go out of the way to combine two separate screenshots is so puzzling. What the embassy says on the issue. I submitted several questions to the embassy about that post, including asking if the ambassador was now endorsing the 51st state idea, what his intention with the post was, and how reasonable Canadians should read the post. This is amplification of the President's Truth Social post, which is our usual practice, came the reply from an embassy spokesperson in Ottawa. Trump posts a lot of things on Truth Social, and not all of them, not even a fraction of them, are reposted by Hoekstra. Hoekstra's job is to defend America's interests in Canada, to represent the Trump administration. Reposting a trolling comment from the president about Canada becoming the 51st state does nothing to advance the interests of either country. Since arriving in Canada, Hoekstra has been attacked, often unfairly, for doing his job and speaking bluntly. When he is attacked for helping to revive and amplify the 51st state talk, which will further harm relations between our two countries, he will deserve everything he gets. This post was incredibly stupid and tone-deaf. Okay. There is a very interesting picture of Pete Hoekstra here. It's pretty unfortunate because he looks like he's having a stroke. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's how it looks. So he is wearing a gray suit with a blue shirt and this red and blue tie. He's wearing glasses. He's kind of got a round face, very short gray hair. And he's got both of his hands up in the air and he's leaning to the side. His eyes are kind of rolling back in his head. He looks disturbing a little bit. It's not his best look. I don't know why they chose this picture. Anyway, photo courtesy of Tony Caldwell via Post Media. That story was Ambassador Peter Hoekstra fans the flames of the 51st state debate by Brian Lilly. The next story is CBC viewers critical of broadcasters' bias after Travis Darnage claims by Spiro Papakowski. Many CBC viewers lost trust with the broadcaster after former TV host Travis Darnage revealed he was told not to book conservatives on his show, according to a report. Access to information records obtained by Blacklock's reporter indicate the CBC received a deluge of criticisms from viewers. Finally, the truth has come out, one viewer emailed, according to the 142-page document. Canadians have lost trust in the CBC. You guys are awful, wrote another. Your bias is there for the world to see. Darnage, who was the host of Canada Tonight, testified March 10 before a House of Commons Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage that he was removed from the air shortly after posting a tweet in April 2024 that his show, quote, requested an interview with the then CBC president, Catherine Tate, and the request was declined. Internal intimidation alleged. He raised serious concerns about the publicly funded network, alleging political bias, internal intimidation, and editorial gatekeeping. This is not about left or right, he testified. It's not about one tweet or one career. It's about systemic control, tokenism, selective enforcement, and a toxic culture where intimidation went unchecked. Darnage's revelations with the CBC didn't sit well with many of the broadcaster's viewers. Taking money from all Canadian taxpayers while only representing the Liberal point of view is a travesty, wrote another critic. The CBC has become Canada's Pravda. I am saddened and disgusted. Darnage testified that he was not even allowed to contact conservatives because Power and Politics, hosted by David Cochrane, was the show where those voices were usually heard. Can't even call Pierre Poilievre. I wasn't even allowed to pick up the phone and call to request Pierre Poilievre, he testified. Look at what happened when I had Melissa Lantsman on my show. I was threatened with being pulled off the air, and the CBC then said in a news statement that they didn't threaten to do that. There were recordings of them trying to do this. Following Dan Raj's testimony, Conservative MP Carol Yancey pointed out that Liberals didn't ask him about his claims during the hearing. Quote, regardless of political leanings, allegations about transparency, editorial independence, and workplace culture at a publicly funded broadcaster deserve serious scrutiny. Yancey, who represents the Long Range Mountains riding in Newfoundland and Labrador, shared on Facebook. Quote, Canadians should expect accountability from institutions funded by taxpayers. One viewer complained that CBC was not covering Dan Raj's testimony to the Standing Committee, calling its management cowards. How far can this go before you realize you have a problem? The angry viewer wrote. Grotesque liberal bias. Another viewer complained of grotesque liberal bias, and the broadcaster being elitist scum to the CBC's ombudsman, which received a reply. Quote, I would request that in the future you express yourself in a polite and respectful manner, replied the ombudsman. Brodie Fenlon, CBC editor-in-chief, said in an email that the CBC tried to achieve balance over time, but not in every show or story. We hear from people who perceive our bias as right-wing and left-wing, as pro-liberal and as pro-conservative, as pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian, as pro and con issues of public interest from vaccine hesitancy to trans rights, wrote Fenlon. These perceptions of bias, whatever direction they take, are of great concern to me and to our editorial leadership. That story was CBC viewers critical of broadcasters' bias after Travis Dan Raj claims, by Spiro Papakowski. The next story is UFC champion Sean Strickland knocks out transgender woman in fake Bud Light ad, by Dan Balicki. Sean Strickland is both a reigning UFC champion and a champion of controversy. The middleweight champ of the world's largest mixed martial arts organization is stirring the pot on social media once again, posting a controversial video as Pride Month begins. In the video that Strickland shared on Instagram, he is seen knocking out a transgender woman during a fight in the octagon. Ugh. What happens in the video? In the clip, which appears to have been made using AI, Strickland is seen landing a strong kick and several punches to his opponent, who has long hair in a ponytail and is wearing a pink dress and gloves. The opponent staggers back toward the cage, where Strickland then lands several more punches before knocking them out with 2 knee strikes, causing the referee to step in. The clip ends with the tag promoting Bud Light as the official beer sponsor of UFC. Quote, I've yet to see one rainbow flag. We're back, Strickland captioned the video while tagging Bud Light's official account. The beer giant did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the video. Strickland also took to X to post about Pride Month being far less gay. Quote, say what you want about Trump, but June has got far less gay, he wrote while adding slapping hands emojis. What other controversies has Strickland been involved in? Strickland has been one of the most outspoken athletes in UFC. Over the past few years, he has made controversial comments about race, transgenderism, and LGBTQ rights. After initially expressing his support for Donald Trump, Strickland has recently become a harsh critic of the U.S. president over the ongoing war with Iran. He also sparked outrage online after saying he had an excited reaction to viewing the video of Charlie Kirk being shot. How is Strickland's MMA career? The 35-year-old fighter recently regained the UFC's middleweight title, defeating champion Khamzat Chimaev via split decision at UFC 328 last month. Strickland previously won the championship in 2023, before losing it to Dricus du Plessis in January 2024. He has a career record of 31 wins and 7 losses, including 12 wins by knockout. There is a picture of Sean Strickland as he's exiting the ring after his victory, when was it? UFC 328. So he's shirtless. He's wearing that giant belt that says UFC in gold, and it's kind of in a hexagon shape. And he's got on these like really tight white shorts, and they look like they have blood on them. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He's also has these like fingerless thick gloves on too. He's bald, and it looks like he has a bloody nose. Photo courtesy of Getty Images. There is also a picture of Sean Strickland's Instagram post that he made, and it says, like what it said before, say what you want about Trump, but June has got far less gay. There's 4 hand clap emojis, and it also shows that 24,000 people hearted it, and there were 860 replies. That's courtesy of Sean Strickland. That story was UFC champion Sean Strickland knocks out transgender woman in fake Bud Light ad, by Dan Balicki. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is majority of small businesses expect little to no revenue impact from World Cup survey, by Spiro Papakoski. This summer's FIFA World Cup may not be the financial windfall many Canadian small business owners were hoping for, according to a new survey. According to the 2026 Small Business Pulse by Merchant Growth, 58% of Ontario businesses expect little to no revenue impact from Canada hosting the soccer tournament compared to a typical summer. The survey, conducted nationally by Angus Reid and based on responses from 130 small business owners and 1,504 Canadians, also found that 1 in 5, or 22% of Ontarians, plan to watch World Cup matches at a locally or independently owned business, where patrons are expected to spend, on average, $54 on food and drinks. That is 11 times more than those who said they would cheer on their favorite team at a national chain during the tournament, or 2%. David Gens, founder and CEO of Merchant Growth, a Vancouver-based financial institution, said there is a large gap between consumer demand and the ability of small businesses to capitalize on it. Quote, "The World Cup is a major economic moment, but it will not benefit every small business equally," Gens said. Businesses with the right location, staffing, and cash flow may be able to turn increased consumer activity into revenue. Canada entered technical recession. After news that Canada had entered a technical recession this year, 4 out of 5 local business owners believe the country is already in a recession or heading toward one within the next 12 months, the survey found. Gens, who founded the small business financing company in 2009, warned that recession concerns, coupled with rising operating costs and trade uncertainty, are having a negative impact on small businesses. For many owners, rising operating costs and tight margins mean they are being cautious about investing ahead of the FIFA World Cup opportunity, he said. Protecting margins over growth. According to the survey, many Ontario businesses say they are focused on protecting margins rather than investing for growth. About 61% said they have cut spending, 34% delayed hiring, 30% reduced staff, 30% paused or canceled expansion plans, and 27% raised prices. With more than a week to go before the tournament kicks off in Canada, the United States, and Mexico, 33% of small business owners say they will not benefit from the games at all, while 28% say their location will not see increased foot traffic. Very few owners said they have made investments or changes ahead of the World Cup. Only 17% said that they have extended operating hours, 16% increased inventory, and just 11% hired additional staff. There is a picture of a portion of the Toronto Stadium, and all the seats are there in rows. They're red seats. And then behind the last row is a big banner that's red, and in white it says, #FIFA World Cup. And the point of this picture is that there's no one in any of the seats. Photo courtesy of Cole Burston via AFP via Getty Images. That story was majority of small businesses expect little to no revenue impact from World Cup, by Spiro Papakoski. The next story is Clarington man accused of anti-Semitic death threats. Cops probe TTC station assault, by Jordan Ursit. A 58-year-old Clarington man has been released on an undertaking after being accused of making several anti-Semitic death threats online. Durham Regional Police said Tuesday that the East Division Criminal Investigations Branch and the Hate Crime and Extremism Unit were tipped off about the alleged threats by Vancouver police and began probing the allegations in May. They said numerous threats were allegedly made on the X social media platform, which led to a search warrant being executed on Tuesday at a residence in Clarington, and a suspect being taken into custody without incident. David Edward Smith was charged with uttering death threats. Police are asking anyone with information about the case or similar incidents to contact the Hate Crime and Extremism Unit at 1-888-579-1520, extension 5800. Anonymous tips can also be sent to Durham Regional Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Woman wanted after assault at TTC station. A woman who was walking with a toddler is wanted by police after being accused of assaulting another woman last week at Main Street Station. Toronto police said the alleged incident happened Thursday at about 5 p.m. in the Danforth Avenue Main Street area in the city's East End. Police said the suspect allegedly assaulted the other woman, who was hospitalized with minor injuries, in an elevator at the TTC station before fleeing the area. They said the suspect is about 30 to 40 years old, about 6 foot, and wearing a gray sweater, black top, black shorts, and a bonnet bandana. She was also carrying a green and red reusable bag. Anyone with information is asked to contact police at 416-808-5500 or Crime Stoppers anonymously at 416-222-8477. Suspect sought after stabbing victim seriously hurt in Oshawa. Cops are seeking information after a male victim suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries from a stabbing on Saturday in Oshawa. Durham Regional Police said officers found the victim with several stab wounds at about 5 a.m. in the Simcoe Street, North Bond Street area of the city. He was then taken to a trauma center. Police said the stabbing occurred in a nearby field about an hour earlier. Anyone with video footage or other information is asked to contact police at 1-888-579-1520, extension 1705. Anonymous information can also be sent to Durham Regional Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Durham cops probing convenience store robbery. Durham Regional Police are asking for tips to help identify a male suspect involved in the armed robbery of a Bowmanville convenience store. Police said they responded to a robbery call on Monday at about 2:15 a.m. at a Circle K store on Mearns Avenue, where a male suspect demanded cash from the register and threatened an employee with a knife. He fled before police arrived, and no one was injured. The suspect is a white male who is about 25 years old and 5'8". Anyone with video footage or other information is asked to contact police at 1-888-579-1520, extension 5355. Anonymous tips can also be sent to Durham Regional Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. That story was Clarington Man Accused of Anti-Semitic Death Threats. Cop Probe TTC Station Assault by Jordan Ursit. The next story is Senate's Mistaken Attempt to Criminalize Residential School Denialism by Brian Lilly. Even as Canada comes to terms with the fact that not everything we've been told about residential schools is true, some people want to criminalize asking questions about it. On Monday, the Senate's Human Rights Committee voted for an amendment, making it a criminal offense to engage in what they called, quote, residential school denialism. This follows a private member's bill brought about by New Democrat Leah Gazan that would also criminalize so-called denialism, a bill that several liberal ministers have said they supported. Now, the government's hate crime-focused Bill C-9 has been amended in the Senate to accomplish the same thing. The amendment, which still has to pass the full Senate and go back to the House, would make such an offense punishable by up to 2 years in jail. The amendment says that it is an offense to promote hatred against Indigenous people, quote, by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Indian residential school system. What does that really mean, though? Would denying that there were 215 children buried at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in BC be an offense of denialism? Would denying that Indigenous children were murdered at these schools, rather than mostly dying of what were common illnesses, then be an indictable offense? It was 5 years ago when the claim that 215 children were buried at the Kamloops School was made based on ground-penetrating radar finding anomalies in the ground. The presence of 215 bodies has never been proven, and no remains have been exhumed to back up this assertion. Did children die while attending residential schools across Canada? Absolutely, including in Kamloops. Does that mean that there are 215 secret burials on the grounds of the Kamloops School? Or that there are mass graves there and at other schools, as many in the media have claimed since then? No, not at all. Yet it was this claim of 215 children in unmarked graves, buried secretly, that gave rise to the call for legislation criminalizing denialism. There have been calls for several years now to criminalize the essence of the work performed by the Postmedia colleague Terry Glavin, who has for 4 years been pointing to the problem with the story surrounding Kamloops. Tough questions need to be asked. Since May 2022, the 1-year anniversary after the Kamloops story broke, Glavin has asked tough questions, pointing to holes in the official narrative, and called out other media for refusing to even question that narrative. Last week, The National Post published his latest piece on the issue titled "The Kamloops Graves and the Poisoned Chalice of Reconciliation." Last week, on the 5-year anniversary, the Globe and Mail published the editorial titled "There is no reconciliation without truth." They admitted to not doing enough to question the narrative at the time, and they called on former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to set the record straight after the hyperbole he engaged in starting in the summer of 2021. If you recall, the flag on Parliament Hill was put at half-mast for 6 months. Politicians went out of their way to outdo each other in their rhetoric or their performative actions. 5 years later, we still have no evidence of what the band now calls, quote, potential burials at the Kamloops school. But we have senators and elected officials looking to criminalize those who deny there are bodies of 215 children buried there. The Senate is often referred to as the chamber of sober second thought. Let's hope that when this amendment gets to the full Senate, it is defeated. There is a picture of a woman named Jennifer Nichols. She is standing in front of the Kamloops Indian Residential School, and she's got her arm around a couple other adults and children. It's taken from behind as they're looking at the front of the school, which is a 2-story red brick building. Photo courtesy of Cole Burston via AFP via Getty Images. That story was Senate's Mistaken Attempt to Criminalize Residential School Denialism by Brian Lilly. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is 50 Cent reacts to baby mama Daphne Joy's alleged sex tape with nemesis Diddy by Danette Wilford. Sean Diddy Combs is still in jail, but that hasn't stopped him from getting attention, this time over an alleged sex tape. The video features the music producer, porn star Sly Diggler, and model Daphne Joy, who just happens to be the mother of 50 Cent's youngest son, 13-year-old Sire. While it's unknown who's responsible for posting the freaky footage online early Sunday, DJ Vlad claimed on social media that he verified the tape is legit. The media personality recounted on his YouTube channel a previous interview with Diggler, who told him that Diddy grabbed the actor's phone and recorded the entire sexual encounter. What 50 had to say. 50 Cent, real name Curtis Jackson, has spoken out in a pair of social media posts, including one in which he says that his son is the real victim. In response to one report in which social media users discussed the explicit, nearly 40-minute alleged video that emerged online, the rapper-actor wrote, "She's not a victim. Sire is. Can you imagine going to 8th grade to find out this is your mom?" 50 added, "The court system in LA thinks it's fine." Jackson has another son, Marquise, 29, with ex-girlfriend Shaniqua Tompkins. In another post, 50 shifted the attention back to Diddy and more blurry footage from the supposed video. Quote, "Free Diddy, he has gone through enough being born with no penis. LOL," he wrote alongside a laughing emoji. Triggering and painful. Joy, meanwhile, posted and then deleted a lengthy statement on her Instagram, claiming she did not consent to be filmed in the footage she called triggering and painful, per the Shadow Room. "The recent leak was a tape I never consented to being filmed on," she wrote. "I was blackmailed by the person in the video and was threatened if I didn't give him the lump sum of money that they would leak it on the web. A giant media outlet ended up buying it years ago, but they refused to post it after Joy informed them it was part of a revenge porn and extortion scheme. But here it is, years later, online." It took me all day to find the courage to rewatch my abuse, Joy wrote. Having to watch this tape was triggering and painful because only I knew the inner turmoil and pressures I felt in those moments. 50 versus Diddy. The release of the alleged sex tape comes months after the release of Netflix documentary Sean Combs' The Reckoning, which was produced by 50. A spokesperson for the Bad Boy Entertainment founder called it a shameful hit piece and said it was shocking that Netflix gave creative control to a longtime public adversary who has a personal vendetta against Mr. Combs and has made a career of slandering and defaming him. Jackson appeared on Good Morning America, where he defended the doc and why he took part in it. If I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as hip-hop is fine with his behaviors, Jackson told Robin Roberts. There's no one else being vocal, the Candy Shop rapper continued. So you would look at it and just say, mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things would allow an entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior. There's a picture of rappers 50 Cent and P. Diddy. They're performing on stage during Screamfest 2007. And they are, 50 Cent is wearing this really kind of colorful, cool t-shirt. He's got on a white baseball hat that's kind of off to the side. And he's got his arms up like he's dancing. And then P. Diddy is wearing really oversized black jeans, a white t-shirt, a yellow jacket, and this massive gold necklace that has like a giant coin as the pendant. And he's holding a pair of glasses in his hand and then pointing at the crowd with his other. And he's got lots of bling, huge rings, big blingy bracelets, the whole 9 yards. Photo credit goes to Scott Grease via Getty Images. That story was 50 Cent reacts to baby mama Daphne Joy's alleged sex tape with nemesis Diddy by Danette Wilford. The next story is Chief Heart Surgeon at Jewish General Hospital quits province amid rising anti-Semitism in Montreal by Aaron Derfel. The chief of cardiac surgery at the Jewish General Hospital has tendered his resignation and plans to move to Atlanta in September, citing rising anti-Semitism in Montreal and worsening problems with the province's healthcare system, the Gazette can reveal. Dr. Emmanuel Moss, who has worked at the Jewish General for the past 10 years, has already informed his patients and his synagogue of his imminent move to the United States. Moss's departure makes him the second high-profile Montreal Jew, after Concordia University professor Gad Saad, to decide this spring to quit the city amid a sharp increase in documented anti-Semitic incidents in the past 3 years. During a May 12 appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Saad announced he accepted a post at the University of Mississippi, where he had already worked as a scholar during a 2-year leave of absence from Concordia. He spoke of death threats he received while at Concordia, saying, "I'm now leaving in large part because it became difficult for me, if not impossible, to be a high-profile Jewish professor who supports the right of Israel to exist." In a post on the social media platform X, linked to the Gazette's article about his departure, Saad nonetheless thanked Concordia for the complete freedom that I was granted to pursue any research stream and any professional endeavor that I desired. Reached by phone, Moss declined to give an interview or to explain his reasons for leaving Montreal. But sources close to Moss confirmed that he and his family had grown disillusioned with growing anti-Semitism in Montreal, and what they viewed as a failure by authorities to crack down on incidents of Jew hatred, from physical assaults on Jews to vandalism of Jewish-owned businesses, and the firebombing of synagogue entrances, as well as the firing of bullets at a yeshiva. Sources noted Moss was particularly offended by images circulating last week of anti-Zionist protesters, some of them masked, staging the mock hanging of an effigy of a man wearing a kippah on his head. That effigy appeared to depict Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. At the same time, Moss has grown frustrated with the limited resources for patients in desperate need of heart surgery in Quebec. In fact, in April, Moss sounded the alarm about a shortage of perfusionists at the Jewish General, warning that the lack of technicians running heart-lung machines was placing the cardiac surgery program in jeopardy. Still, a source suggested that anti-Semitism was probably the tipping point for Moss, who is soft-spoken and avoids the spotlight. The health system issues that may have played a role in Manny Moss deciding to leave, they didn't just arrive last week, or last month or last year, said the source, who declined to have their name published so they could speak candidly about the issue. The problems with the health system have existed for years, and he could have left at any time before. So what it comes down to is the anti-Semitism and the feeling that the city has become an increasingly dangerous or unrecognizable place to live. Moss implemented robotic cardiac surgery at the Jewish General. Since Moss broke the news to the Jewish General, the Côte des Nègres Hospital, sorry if I said that wrong, has scrambled to find a short-term solution to ensure that all of Moss's patients do not face unnecessary delays. Dr. Lawrence Rosenberg, Chief Executive Officer of the West Central Montreal Health Authority, said the Jewish General will partner with another institution in the city to ensure that Moss's patients are covered. Quote, "From a strategic planning perspective, we have been aware that Dr. Moss could leave at a time of his choosing, for personal reasons, and we have been working on contingencies for some time," Rosenberg said in a statement. When he departs, we will have a plan in place to offset any potential negative impact to our cardiac surgery program, with the view of maintaining timely access to high-quality care. That's all the time we have for this story, which was Chief Heart Surgeon at Jewish General Hospital quits province amid rising anti-Semitism in Montreal, by Aaron Durfel. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 2nd issue of the Toronto Sun. Your reader has been Melanie Gorelnik. Thank you for listening.